Welcome to our podcast. I'm Sophia, your host for today's episode on Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller, a story about chasing the American dream and what it costs along the way. Today we'll be talking with a few very special guests, the characters themselves. We'll hear from Willie Loman, his son Biff, and even get insight from an expert on mental health and suicide. I'm joined now by Biff Loman, the eldest son of Willie. Biff, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Honestly, it's kind of weird to talk about all this out loud, but maybe it will help someone else make sense of it all.
Let's start with your relationship with your father. How would you describe it?
It was complicated. Growing up, I really thought he was a hero. He'd come home from selling, always full of so much stories. But as I got older, I saw through it. The truth is, he built his life on illusions, and he wanted us to believe them too.
What was the breaking point?
It was Boston. I walked in on something that shattered every image I had of him. That day, I realized he wasn't the man he said he was. And from there, we really never recovered.
Do you think he loved you?
Yeah, he did in his own way, but love mixed with pressure and lies, it gets heavy. He wanted success so bad, he couldn't accept who he really was. Thanks, Sophia. I'm Martha, your second host today, and joining me now is Willie Loman himself. Willie, I know this is a really difficult conversation, but thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome. I've got a lot on my chest.
Willie, why do you feel so much pressure to succeed?
Because that's what I was taught. You smile, shake hands, be well liked, people will respect you, and you'll rise. That was the dream. That's what I told my boys. But somewhere along the way, the world changed, and I didn't change with it.
And in the end, you took your own life. Why?
I thought it was the only way to leave something behind. My life insurance, at least I could help Biff get a fresh start. I just wanted to matter, to be worth something.
Do you think you misunderstood success?
I didn't just misunderstand it, I was consumed by a version of it that never existed. I was confused with being loved, with being valuable. I wish I could have seen my family for who they were and been okay with that. I'm Shayna, your third host for the podcast, and now I'm here with Dr. Kraz, a mental health expert who specializes in suicidal ideation and family trauma. Dr. Kraz, what can we learn from Willie Loman's story? So is suicide. Was it avoidable?
In many ways, yes, it could have been. If Willie had access to mental health support and if his family had been able to communicate openly about their pain instead of burying it under expectations, things could have turned out differently. The play reminds us of the danger of unresolved trauma and the unrealistic ideals we push onto ourselves and others. Death of a Salesman isn't just a critique of the American dream, it's a mirror reflecting how fragile we become when chasing something without stopping to ask if it's what we really want. Before we wrap up, a quick discussion. What stuck with each of us the most?
For me, it was Biff realizing that he had to let go of his father's dream, to find his own truth.
For me, it was Willie's desperation. It shows how dangerous it can be to tie your self-worth to your success and the amount of money you have.
And for me, it was the silence between the characters. What they didn't say mattered more than what they did, and that's where the real tragedy lives. On to our break. It's Sophia again, back from our break. We've heard from Willie, Biff, and even a mental health expert, but there are two more voices we need to hear from. Behind every complicated man are people carrying their quiet burdens. In Death of a Salesman, those people are Linda Loman, Willie's wife, and the woman, the unnamed figure from his past. Let's start with Linda. Linda, thank you for being here. You stood by Willie through so much. What kept you holding on?
It's because I loved him, and I still do. People only saw his anger and his delusions, but I saw the man that was trying to keep his dignity. He was tired and worn down, but I couldn't turn away from that.
But did you ever resent the lies he told, the unrealistic hopes?
Of course I did. I wanted to scream sometimes. But back then, women didn't get to scream. We just stitched things back together. I fought for peace, for survival, and for our boys. I knew he was slipping, and no one else seemed to care. I was the only one keeping him on the ground.
Your line in the play, "Attention must be paid," has been passed down through generations. What did you mean by that?
I meant that a man like Willie, who has worked his entire life, who was a decent man to his core, he deserved to be seen, not for his failures, but for the effort he put out there. The world discarded him, and we just let it happen.
Next, we turn to someone who appears only briefly in the play, but whose presence shatters an entire family. Today, she's agreed to speak as simply the woman. Thank you for joining us. What can you tell us about your relationship with Willie?
It wasn't love, Sophia. It was attention. He needed to feel important. I needed someone to make me feel like I mattered. We both used each other.
Did you know he had a wife?
I mean, I suspected, but he never talked about her. When we were together, he was someone else. Confident, funny. He wasn't the desperate man I've heard described here.
How did you feel when Biff found out about you?
Honestly, that moment still haunts me. I saw the shame on Willie's face, the panic. And the boy, that kind of betrayal leaves a scar that never heals.
Do you blame yourself?
I blame the lies. I blame the hunger we both had for something that we couldn't name.
Willie Loman's world was filled with people who tried to love him, tried to help him, or tried to escape him. What ties them all together is the search for validation, truth, and freedom. Stay with us for our final thoughts. Before we end today's episode, a final word. We often judge people like Willie from the outside by their failures, their lies, and their outbursts. But what happens when we look deeper? We find a frightened man, a grieving wife, a disappointed son, and people caught in a web of expectations none of them asked for. Death of a Salesman may be fiction, but its truths are very, very real. If you're just tuning in, we've been diving into Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, exploring the emotional toll of chasing unrealistic ideals and the unraveling of a father-son relationship. Let's open the floor now to a discussion conversation between all of us, myself, Martha, Shayna, and our characters. We want to talk about the central question. What does success really mean, and who gets to define it?
It's so interesting how different Biff and Willie's definitions of success are. Biff wants something real, even if it means working on a farm. Willie wants status, admiration, and legacy. It's like they're living in two different versions of America.
That's exactly it. For me, success stopped being about money the day I realized I was lying to myself just to please my dad. I'd rather be broke and honest than rich and miserable.
But people don't listen to a man with dirt under his nails. I wanted you to be someone. I thought if I could just make one big sale, one big break, it would all mean something.
That kind of pressure just isn't healthy. It's just the trauma that Willie continues to pass down to his family. And Biff breaking free wasn't just a rejection, but it was survival.
Right, and we see this in real life all the time. When parents pressure unfulfilled dreams onto their children, it creates a cycle of shame and disappointment. Biff choosing to define his own path as a way of healing. I love that, Dr. Kraz. Healing always doesn't look like reconciliation. It sometimes means stepping away and setting boundaries, and that's not easy to do, especially when love is tangled in guilt.
You know what line still hits me hard? When Biff says, "Pop, I'm nothing. I'm nothing, Pop. Can't you understand that?" That wasn't self-hate, it was freedom. He was trying to get his dad to see him, not some version of his success, but him.
And yet, Willie still couldn't hear him. In that moment where the truth and denial crash, it's like the whole heart of the play.
Mine is, don't measure your worth with someone else's ruler.
Mine is, you must let people evolve. Holding on to who you want them to be will only break you.
Mental health isn't weakness, it's humanity, and help is always more useful than silence.
You don't owe anyone a dream that's not your own.
I wish I could tell people, don't wait until it's too late to say the things that matter.
Beautifully said, all of you. Death of a Salesman may be a tragedy, but it also leaves us with a challenge to be more honest, more present, and more compassionate to ourselves and each other. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week to share our thoughts on Excalibur. Thank you for listening to your host, Sophia,
Martha,
and Shayna.